Okay, so today we will talk about extremas and the mean value theorem. Let me start with a definition. Okay, so a function has a global maximum respectively a global minimum at x equal c, some real number, if f of c, so global max, f of c will be greater or equal to f of x for any x in the domain. So let's say that f is a function from A to B, okay? All right? Respectively, so what happened for global mean, then f of c will be less or equal to f of x, also for any x in A. All right, and the maximum value of f is f of c, and the minimum value of f is f of c. Yeah. So if c is a global max, and the minimum value will be f of c if c is a minimum, a global minimum. All right, but this is a global extrema. Yeah, so if x equals c is a global max or mean, we call it global extrema. So extrema will both mean max or mean, basically. Now we have defined global max and global mean, but we have also the notion of local max and local mean. So what is this notion? A function has a local max, respectively local mean at x equals c if f of c is greater or equal to f of x, respectively f of c will be less or equal to f of x, and this should happen when x is near c. So what does it mean to be near? Well, it means in some open interval, when x is in some open interval containing C. Now, this notion of extrema, okay, so once again, if C is a local max or mean, we say that C is a local extrema. Global extrema, local extrema. Then this can be easily seen actually on the graph of the function. So let's take some example. Okay, so let's consider a graph of a function, something like that. Okay. Now, so what happened here? You will see that. Okay, so let's localize first the local. Yeah, so this is a little dangerous. So we are going to study between this and this part. Okay, so we study f. So basically, f will be on the interval AB, right? Okay, so on this interval, can we localize first the global extrema? So the global max, as you can see, global max will be the biggest value for f of x. So as you can see, it will be about here, right? Okay, so this C max, at this value, definitely f has a global max. So we have a global max at C max. Okay. Now on the same interval AB, where is the global mean? Global mean is basically here, right? This is the lowest value possible for f of x on this interval. So this we would call definitely C. Yeah, so here C mean would be, well, on my drawing is not precise, but it should be somewhere here. So it's not 0, okay? Let's say that it's not 0, it's C mean. So we have a global mean at C mean. Now what about the local extrema? So local extrema, first of all, we notice that any global extrema is always a local extrema. Okay? So this C max is also a local. So these are also local extrema. Because if you satisfy the condition, this condition for any x, then in particular you satisfy it when x is near C. Okay? So a global is always a local extrema. Now, but we have another, we have a local max, as you can see here. This is a local max. So this is C log, yeah. C log. As you can see, C log is a local max. Okay. So here you can see the notion of global or local extrema. Now, first of all, we will try to talk about existence and, if possible, how to say where are the global max and if they exist. And then after that, we will talk about the local ones, which are a little more difficult to find. Okay, in order to take care of the global extrema, we have the following famous theorem, which is called the extreme value theorem. So naturally we will call it for short the EVT, extreme value theorem. So please remember in this class, and each time we are seeing a theorem, the important is not only the conclusion but also the hypothesis. In particular, in an exercise or in exam situation, if you apply a theorem, you should imperatively check that the conditions of the theorem are satisfied. So here, what are the conditions? Well, it's everything that is after if. So what is the if here? If f is continuous, so continuity is an essential hypothesis here. So f must be continuous on some closed interval, okay? As we have seen, continuity has a lot to do with closed interval, because contrary to limits or derivation, we also consider the precise value, what happened at the precise value. So we need to include this bound in the interval. Okay, so f is continuous on a closed interval, then f admits a global extrema. By which I mean a global max and a global mean. Okay? So basically, you don't have much condition, but if you consider a function on a closed interval, okay, a, b, then, so be careful here, a and b are a real number. They cannot be infinity or minus infinity, because we need this closed condition. So if you are continuous on some closed interval, then you will have necessarily a global max or and mean. Okay? So this is the EVT. We have another theorem which is called Fermat's theorem. And which says the following. So this answers the question of existence or not of global extrema. Okay? We just need continuity on a closed. Now, the Fermat theorem will tell us a little more. So basically, the condition here is that we have two conditions. F has a local max or mean at x equals c, and second condition, if, sorry, so second condition will be f prime of c exists. And the conclusion is that in this case, we can conclude that the derivative at this c is always 0. So this concerns both global and local, because it concerns local, and any global is also a local. Okay? So basically, as you can see on this curve, in each one of these situations, local or global, you will have a derivative equal to 0, which means the tangent is horizontal. Okay? So Fermat's theorem tells us that if we have at some point an extrema, global or local, then the tangent must be horizontal. That's how we find the extrema. Yeah. Now, be careful that if you remove condition 1 or 2, this theorem becomes really wrong. So let me put a danger sign here. So first of all, imagine that you have a derivative which is 0. This will not imply that f has a local extrema. It won't. Example, consider the function x maps to x to the cube. This has no extrema at x equals 0. However, the derivative 3 times x to the square is 0 at 0. Okay? So basically, if you have 1 and 2, if you have a local max, a local extrema, and if the derivative exists, then it must be 0, but the reciprocal is wrong. So if you have a 0 derivative, it is not implying that this value is an extrema. So it's very subtle. You have to remember in which direction goes the implication. Okay? Another remark. Yeah, I will stop here for this. So this is very important to remember in which direction we have the implication. So basically, how to find global extrema? Okay, how do we find them? This is very easy. In fact, the f, so the global max of f will be basically the max of the following values. Ah, yes, so maybe I should define something here. Yeah, sorry. I need to define something. So so basically, excuse me, I will give a definition before this way to find the global extrema. So definition. We say that x equals c is a critical value for f if f prime of c equals 0, or f prime has no, well, is not differentiable. Yeah, so f not differentiable at x equals c. So two cases, the value is said to be critical value. We have two cases, f prime of c equals 0, or f prime of c is not defined, which means that f is not differentiable at x equals c. Okay? In both cases, we will call this a critical value for f. Now, let us come to the way to identify global max. So, how to find global max, global extrema, I mean. F. So basically it's very simple. If we want to know where are the global extrema, so first of all, where are the global max? So the global max of F will be equal to the max between the following values. So you will look at F at critical points. F at critical points, this will give you, so if you have 1, 2, 3 critical points, look at the value at each of these critical points and consider the max. And also you have to consider the values at the extremity of your interval. So F is defined again from A to B, right? And A is some closed interval AB. Remember that we have condition of existence under this hypothesis that we have a continuous function on AB. Then you will just consider these values and take the max. You will get the global max. Similarly, the global mean of F will be the minimum value among all F of critical points, critical values or points, and also F of A, F of B. Yeah, so as you can see, basically existence of global extrema, yes, if the function is continuous on some closed interval, and where? Well, to know where, you need to calculate the values at the critical points and also check the values at the limit of your interval. And you will find the global extrema. Good. Now, let's see another important theorem. This is called the Rolle theorem. Rolle theorem. Okay, what does it say? So we consider F be a function such that SD, such that, so for Rolle we will have the three following conditions that I'm going to call R1, R2, R3. R1 is that F is continuous on some closed interval AB. Okay, so same hypothesis actually than the extreme value theorem. Rolle 2 will say that F is differentiable on the open AB. So you remember, differentiability means that the derivative is well defined, exists, right, at the point. So R3, we will assume that F of A is equal to F of B. And then the result is that, so then the conclusion of this theorem is that there exists necessarily some value C in AB such that F prime of C equals 0. Yeah, which means basically there exists a critical value, right? Okay, so here we can check the proof of the Rolle theorem. So first of all, if the function is constant, okay, imagine that this is a constant function, which means that f of x is equal to c, a constant, for any x in AB, right? But then f prime of x is the zero function, right? And so any any C in AB is such that f prime of C equals 0. Okay, so when the function is constant, the statement is really obvious. Now, assume that the function is not constant. So if it's not constant, we have two cases. The first one, well, we can find an element in AB such that f of x will be greater than f of a, right? Because the value is not constant, then for any other value, this f of x will be case 1 greater than fa, you can find such, or case 2, you can find one which will be smaller, but you can only be in case 1 or 2, right? So in case 1, let's assume that we have a value x between a and b such that f of x is greater than f of a. Then, by the EVT, the extreme value theorem, so we remember so we can apply it. We can apply this EVT. Why? It's because we have R1, okay, and we know that the function is continuous on the closed, okay? Then, since f of a is equal to f of b, this is R3, this max, okay, yeah. Okay, sorry, yeah. Yeah, what I wanted to say is that, what do we know? We know that there exists a global max, right? So, f has a maximal value, right? Somewhere in AB. But we know that if f of x is greater than f of a, is greater than f of a, which is equal to f of b, right? This is by R3. Which means that, what can we conclude here? We can conclude that this max is in fact in the open interval. So this max is in fact in the open interval, okay? We can call it C, okay? And then f of C, so it's a global max. In particular, it's also a local, because any global is anyway a local extrema. And by R2, we know that the function is differentiable on the open, so it's differentiable at C. So f prime of C exists. This we know. So, if we apply Fermat, we can conclude that this must be 0 at C. Okay? So, we have found a critical point, basically, C, in the case where we had a global max, okay? But if, for a second, there exists an x in AD such that f of x is less than f of c, okay? F of a. And then you will proceed similarly. So the proof is analogous. Very similar, okay? Okay, so it's very deep theorem. Now, how do we apply, what are the applications of this Hall and Fermat theorem? Well, for example, you can prove the following statement. Prove that x cubed plus x minus 1 equals 0 as exactly one real root. Okay, so how do we solve this? So be careful here, we don't want to prove, we have done this kind of exercise before, but it was proved that this equation has a solution. Here, we want to prove that it has exactly one, so existence and only one, a unique solution, okay? So for the existence of the root, just apply, so what was that? It was the IVT, the intermediate value theorem, and we have done this before, okay? Now, this root is unique. How do you prove this? Well, you prove this by contradiction, okay? We assume that we have two such roots. Okay, so let's say C and D. Okay, C and D. Now, what can we do? Yeah. So here we will do on 0, 1. Okay, on 0, 1, on the interval 0, 1. Remember, sometimes we don't give the interval, and then you have to find it by basically drawing first the graph and see where this becomes 0. Okay, but here let's give the interval. So basically, C and D will be inside this 0, 1, right? And then you set f of x to be x3 plus x minus 1. Then this function will satisfies R1, R2. Yeah, so you will study it on CD, right, on the two roots. But of course, we want to prove that we will prove eventually that it's a contradiction, okay? So anyway, assuming that there exist two roots, and C, of course, must be different of D, we want really two. Then it will satisfy, you can check easily, okay? I'm not doing the detail, I'm just giving you the outline of the proof. Then you can conclude by Hall that there will be some new value E such that f prime of E will be equal to 0. And this will be in the open interval CD, which is inside the open interval 0, 1, right? Okay, f prime of E is equal to 0. What does it tell us? It tells us, so f prime of E, what is that? Taking the value of f of x, so we see that this is basically 3e squared plus 1, okay? And this should be equal to 0. But as you can see, this implies that e squared is equal to minus 1 over 3. So impossible. This is impossible. Which means that our hypothesis that we had two roots was wrong. Okay? So basically, thanks to this new theorem, the Rolle theorem, not only can you prove the existence of the root is done by the IVT, intermediate value theorem, but the unicity of the solution is proved by contradiction using this Rolle theorem. Now, another formulation of the Rolle theorem is, and it is actually more famous than the Rolle theorem, but it is basically the same, the mean value theorem. So let me state the mean value theorem. It says the following: let f be a function such that we will have, we will call also in abbreviated version the MVT. So basically the MVT is the Rolle theorem, but a little more general. Okay? So it says the following: f is continuous on a closed interval AB, and we will assume that it is differentiable on the open interval AB. So closed on the continuous on the closed and differentiable on the open. And the conclusion, so basically you have Rolle 1, Rolle 2 as hypothesis, but not Rolle 3. And then what you are doing is, what you can prove is that nevertheless there will be some C in AB, the open interval, such that f prime of C will be equal to f of B minus f of A divided by B minus A. All right. Then the proof of that is very easy, and it reduces easily to Rolle theorem. Okay, so basically it's the same proof. Nothing deeper, but this theorem became very famous. Now again, let's see an application of the MVT. Okay, not the Rolle, but the MVT. So, for example, we apply the MVT on f of x will be equal to x3 minus x, okay, on the interval, closed interval 0, 2. All right. So what happens is the following. We check. So f of x first is continuous on the closed interval 0, 2. So why? Why is that? Because f of x is a polynomial, right? And a polynomial is always continuous on its domain, polynomial. For the same reason, f of x is differentiable on the open, and for the same reason. Then what can we conclude? We can conclude that there exists a C which will be inside the open interval 0, 2, such that f prime of C will be f of, so f of 2 minus f of 0 divided by 2, isn't it? Which gives here the value 6 minus 0 over 2, which will be just 3. And not only this, but f prime of c, so f prime of c, as we can observe, will be 3c squared minus 1, okay? And so this will be equal to 3 if and only if c squared so c equal, plus minus 2 over square root of 3. But be careful, and c is in the open interval 0, 2. Okay, so it's positive. So therefore, finally, you can find actually precisely the value. It will be 2 over square root of 3. So when you apply completely the MVT, you will actually find usually a value if you can solve the equation in the derivative. Okay. Now we have several corollaries of this important MVT theorem. First corollary 1. So I remind you that a corollary is a result that you can deduce easily from the previous theorem. So here we deduce easily from the mean value theorem the following result. If we have the derivative equal to 0 for any x in some open interval, then the function is constant on this open interval. Yeah. The proof of that is that if we consider x1 less than x2, both values in the open interval AB, then assume that f of x1 is not f of x2. F is necessarily differentiable on AB, okay, by condition. Therefore, yeah, why is it? Because it's 0, so it's differentiable, right? Because it's 0. And therefore, it implies that f is continuous, is continuous. So it will be continuous on x1, x2 closed. Okay, so be careful, huh? It's quite subtle. Because it is 0, it means that it exists. To exist means differentiable. Because it's differentiable, it means that it is also continuous, but then it's continuous on x1, x2, which is inside AB. Okay? So continuity on AB, and of course, it is by knowing that it is 0, so it exists, it is also differentiable on the open interval. Okay, so you just check that you have your MVT condition on this x1, x2. And yeah, so it was kind of a proof by contradiction, isn't it? Because here, this means not constant, right? This means not constant. So assume it's not constant, and then we are going to see that something wrong is happening. So here we have checked that the MVT conditions are satisfied, so we can apply MVT. And MVT tells us that there will be some value x1 in the open interval x1 and x2, such that f prime of c will be equal to f of x1 minus f of x2 divided by x1 minus x2. But you see, by hypothesis, fx1 is not fx2, so this is not 0. Okay? So this is a contradiction with the hypothesis. contradiction, which means that the function is indeed constant. Okay, so the proof is quite subtle. Also, note that we knew before, so here we apply the MVT. And remember that what was known before, it was the statement in the opposite direction. So we knew that when f is constant, then its derivative is 0. Here we do the reciprocal. We assume that it is 0 and we conclude that it is constant. Okay, so you can do that now thanks to the MVT theorem. That's the new information. Another piece of information that we can learn from the MVT is the following. Corollary 2. So corollary 2 is actually a corollary of corollary 1. It can be deduced immediately. So if we assume that two functions have same derivative for any x on some open interval, right? Then this implies that f minus g is constant function on the same open interval. Okay, so the proof is apply corollary 1 to capital F of x. You will take just the difference f of x minus g of x. Yeah. This, I don't do it, but it's very easy. Okay. Now, to finish this section, so basically, we have defined global max, global extremas, we have defined local extremas, and we have seen a series of theorems, the most famous being the mean-value theorem, which tell you basically where you can find some global max and using critical value and other stuff. Okay. What about the local extremas? And also, I would like to talk slightly about the shape of the graph. Shape of the graph and local extrema. Okay, so you know already that the derivative is related to the shape of the graph. For example, if the derivative is positive on some interval I, then the function f is increasing. You know that, right? Also, if the derivative is negative, then f of x is decreasing. And as we have seen just now, if the derivative is 0 on some interval, then the function is constant. But if we consider higher derivation, then we can say a little more on the shape of the function. So here, I need to introduce the following notion. We say that f is concave up, I will call it CU, concave up, if the second derivative is greater than 0. and I will call concave down. Okay, so respectively, concave down, respectively, if the second derivative is negative. Concave down. Okay. Second definition, we say that x is an inflection, so let's say x equals c is an inflection point if the concavity changes at x equals c. So basically, before c, if you have concave up, and then after you have concave down, or opposite, if you have before concave down and then concave up, in both cases, you will say that x equals c is an inflection point. Right. These notions have the following influence on the graph of f of x. Okay, so let's consider all possible conditions. Well, first of all, if you have something like that, this will be concave up plus decreasing. Any shape like that will be concave up and decreasing. And then any shape like that will be concave up and increasing. Okay, what can we have also? We can have this kind of shape. This will be concave down and, as you can see, decreasing. Finally, we can have this kind of shape, and this will be concave down again and increasing. Okay, you will be always in one of these cases. And how do you determine if you are concave up and concave down and increasing or increasing? You basically calculate the sign of first and second derivative. Okay, first will give you is it increasing or decreasing, and second, the sign of the second will tell you the concavity. Okay, knowing these two signs, you will be able to draw the graph of any function. Okay, just by studying the sign of these two derivatives. Another thing you can do on the derivative, and this is to determine local extrema. So how, and I will finish the lecture by this, how to find local extremas. Remember, global extremas are necessarily among the values at the critical points and the extremities of your interval, because the existence of a global is necessarily on some closed interval. Okay? But what about local extrema? How do we find this? Well, you will find first the critical points. Critical points. This will be necessary. And secondly, you will apply first derivative test, and if not enough, then you apply the second derivative test. And let me now tell you what are these tests. Okay, so first, the first derivative test. It tells you the following. Okay, so let x equals c be a critical point. Then x equals c is a relative max local max if f prime of x is greater than 0 when x goes to c minus, and f prime of x is less than 0 when x goes to c plus. Second, x equals c is a local mean if f prime of x is this time less than 0 when x goes to c minus, and f prime of x is positive when x goes to c plus. Now, third condition, it won't be a local extrema. So it's not a local extrema if the sign of f prime x is the same on both sides. Of x equal c. Okay, so you can apply this first derivative test. Sometimes it's not enough, so just for your information, let me tell you about the second derivative test. And sometimes the second derivative test also won't be enough, but we won't study such cases this year, so don't worry too much. Again, I consider a critical point. Okay, and I will assume, so remember, critical point means that the derivative at this point is 0, or that the derivative, the function is not differentiable. Okay, so here we will assume that f prime of c is 0. Then x is, first of all, it will be a local max. It will be a local max if the second derivative at this point is negative. And so basically this second test seems very easy. You just need to consider the second derivative, right? And the local mean if f second of c is positive. The problem is that to calculate the second derivative is much more work than calculate the first derivative. So first, start by the first derivative test, and if it doesn't work, try this one. Be careful that we cannot conclude anything if the second derivative at this value is 0. Okay, so it's just strictly less or strictly positive, but we cannot conclude if it is 0. Okay, for the second derivative. Okay, so I will stop here for today. Thank you.